60.
Afternoon Delight.
The morning show that doesn't suck.
Well, I have a microphone and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say.
You're listening to Raw Mike Richards on Newstalk Sauga 960. And now, from the Bell Lifestyle Studio, here's Mike.
It is 8:38 Newstalk Sauga 960. Raw Mike Richards. And it is, I've been talking about my good friend Doug Kirkwood joining us. And for a lot of people, and those that might see this later on today or listening to it later on today will know that Doug and I fronted the Fan 960 in Calgary and built that thing up to have the biggest sports radio numbers in the country. And so we haven't talked on air. We talk every day. We talk for hours on the phone and people are like, who are you just talking to? None of your business. That's who I was talking to. It's our good friend Dougie Kirkwood. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining me this morning.
Mike, you nailed it. It has been such a long time. We have not been on the air together, since Calgary. So well over 10 years ago, you went off to a radio station here in Toronto, TSN 1050. Ironically enough, that's where you and I worked when the team launched back in 2001. But let's talk about happier times, Mike.
Yeah, well, and 1050, as I talk about a lot, was CHUM for literally everyone in the city who knew it as 1050 CHUM, or they would just say CHUM. In the day, that meant the AM side, not the FM side. And it was, and still is in my mind, still the most glorious of times, the greatest station, and one of the biggest and best in all of North America. It's hard to quantify that now to people where, it's so fragmented with streaming and Spotify and everything else that people listen to, but there was nothing like walking in those doors. Now, what did the sign say? There was a sign they had up.
Yeah, they had a
through these doors.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. There are a couple of signs. There was one above the announcer door that when you went into the control room, and then there was one in the control room. So the control room where I was, it said, "Through this door walks the finest producers in Canada," or something like that. And then on the on-air side, they had a sign as well, said, "Through this door walks, the finest on-air personalities," or something along those lines. But
and it
you
was.
nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it though, Mike. It was a one word. Everybody knew what CHUM was, and CHUM was it. But it was a great time, and it was a wonderful time of my career, and almost 15 wonderful years at 1050 CHUM.
And your brother, longtime producer for imaging for the entire station, has won numerous awards in Canada and in New York, which was always kind of the goal, to win those big awards in New York. Your brother's won those as a producer, and of course working with some of the all-time great copywriters, of course, Larry McGinnis, known as Gagman or Gagman, the late great Zeke Stedbiak. You start going through that list. It really was a hall of fame and a who's who, which eventually guys like us, when you saw radio kind of squeezing things out, we decided we needed to take off. So you'd gone to different places, you'd gone to Ottawa, you'd gone to Abbotsford, I take off to Calgary, and eventually we meet up in Calgary. And finally, all the craziness that we would do to each other, like literally in a bar or at home, or to annoy people 24 hours a day when we're together, all of a sudden became public. It became a show.
Life became art.
Yeah, it did. And people still talk about it. And look, if there's anything that I miss, it's those days in Calgary, because I don't think there were better days. I cannot say that wasn't the finest production. It wasn't. I mean, it was the most fun to do. It was the most creative to do. The stuff that we did on air has never been even attempted since. And so for me, I miss that. I miss us seeing each other together every morning was fantastic. And I still love the city. I miss Calgary dearly.
Yeah, I do as well, Mike. You rounded a lot of bases there. We had a lot of good times, and the art of radio, let's say, has kind of gone to the wayside. The ability to be able to fly on your feet and come up with something, as we would call spots, or during the break while the commercials are playing. Mike and I have got ADD at best. Look, something shiny. But that's when the creative juices would really get flowing, where we would see something on TV, or we would talk about something during the break, and the next thing you know, we'd bring it into the radio, and we'd have all of this mass production. It sounded like a circus going on, And our boss at the time would just shake his head going, I don't know how you guys are creating this orchestra of sound and imagery, but man, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, to tell you the truth, Mike. It was special times of radio, and I miss that. But man, it's great to have you back on the radio. Great to be joining you, pal.
And that's not to say that we didn't do horrible things, because
no.
Our boss and Kelly Kirsch was look, he was right behind us because he thought it was funny too, and he was always good to win it pulled. And I think it was only maybe once or twice tops that he said we had to pull it back. But the day Anna Nicole Smith died, that was a great bit. People are like, are you supposed to be doing that? The day I pretended I was somebody else interviewing Rita McNeil and I'm saying that went on that was like a 12-minute bit with all kinds of a lot of these stuff. And I'll be honest, almost everything we did in Calgary, we'd be certainly the CRTC would have some issues, the public would have issues, but we might even get arrested. Like it was the days where, and look, they talk about community standards and people say, do you feel bad about it? I said, no, because in that time, with the community that we were in, that being Alberta, if they didn't like it or they thought it was over the line, we'd know about it. But the fact is, there's a sense of humor out there. There's a laid back nature to what they wanted to hear. And they were like, bring it. It's like going to a stand-up or a comedy nightclub. It's like, don't go in there and then be insulted or shocked or dismayed at the material. You're going to a stand-up club. So when you turned on at the time called Mike Richards in the Morning, you were getting you and me doing you and me. Yeah.
I tread cautiously when I say this, because society, times, life, values, sensibilities almost have changed a lot in the last, let's say, 10 plus years. A lot of the things that you and I did from, let's call it a creative, comedic standpoint, and that's what it was. People realized, hey, these guys are doing a show. Everything is tongue in cheek. But when you got a guy like myself or you, or we're literally ripping off Dave Chappelle. Okay, so now I'm a white guy doing a Dave Chappelle impression. Nobody's buying it to begin with. It's so over the top, you can't help but laugh at it. There wasn't anything deemed to ruffle the feathers, so to speak. Yeah, were some people maybe offended by it or whatever. Look, it never shut us down. Mike, lots of people phoned the radio station, wanted to hear that stuff, wanted us to replay that stuff. And that's, I'm kind of circling the basis as far as being magical times working with you, because we'd never be able to replicate, duplicate, or emulate that kind of radio again. Society as a whole now is so hypersensitive to absolutely everything. You're almost afraid to crack the microphone open from a broadcasting standpoint at times.
Well, and to that point, like when you look at social media, you look at something like Twitter, or depending on where it happens, but I'll use Twitter as an example, but you can also see it on Facebook, Instagram, but mostly on Twitter. If you put a picture of a piece of wheat and a cotton ball and said, I really like these, the next line is, how dare you, racist,
yeah, all the weak people, all the weak people are crazy, out of control. All the
Hitler
people are.
You. I was like, wait a minute, you could not, because I'll tell you, there was a picture of Pinball on Facebook. And there was Pinball, Clemens, and Chad Owens. Two of the major stars, and certainly Chad of his time. And then some person just went nuts, and the guy said later on, I'll delete it. And I said, it goes, I didn't realize that there would be a problem. Well, number one, if you can find something wrong with Pinball Clemens, I
never heard a bad word uttered ever about that man. Like, if you're saying something bad about pinball, you better check yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. So you hate ice cream or puppies,
like flowers or rainbows or sunshine?
Soup bad.
Soup. I hate soup.
I don't know. I don't understand. And as I said, it's just the angriest society I've seen. So in the news, so there's Quebec saying, well, if you didn't get vaccinated and we have to look after you in the hospital, we're going to charge you. So you have all kinds of people, and I'll be honest, someone like myself saying, well, if you didn't follow the rules and now you have to postpone, and speaking to someone who's had cancer, something that might be life-saving because you didn't want to follow the rules, you yipped off that it wasn't important, and now you're in there with COVID, then maybe you have to pay for it. Well, Now you have another side saying, how dare you? What about then overweight people and smokers? And so now they go on this other track to just fight. I just don't know what isn't a fight these days, Doug, because I'm exhausted by. I'm exhausted by the arguments.
I am too. I thought we were going to get through this without bringing up COVID, but how do you not bring it up at this point? You know, I saw, as we all do, I mean, CP24's ratings must be through the roof because we all have it on like a fish tank all day long and watching whatever's going on and reacting by the numbers and keeping up to date and pop up this and pop up that and et cetera, et cetera. I saw something last night, Mike. I don't know why I found it funny. I found it disturbingly funny was the fact that it said something, and I'm paraphrasing here, the virus is running out of people to attack.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So I thought, okay, you know, now we're going to feel bad for the virus. Oh, look at the virus. He's running out of people to attack now. Everybody's sick. You're not sick. Now, knock on wood. I've had my triple shots like most people have had. I've stayed in the house. For all I know, Mike, I could have had it and been through it. I've had zero symptoms. I know people fairly high up in, let's call it the society in life and business as well, who have refused to get a shot. COVID has been through their family. Everybody's been through it. They got through it for 2 or 3 days and they're kind of brushing it off going, hey, it's a bad cold. And yet there are thousands of people in the hospital right now. Thousands.
Our pal Jimmy the Bank has COVID.
And how is he feeling?
Terrible. He's really taking it tough. And, you know, it's just, look, we all want to get back to whatever we consider to be normal. Is it new normal?
What does that even mean anymore?
I don't know, but it's certainly better than this. I mean, you know, here we are saying, you know, it's tough to bring up COVID. It's not that tough. We're not in the studio together. We normally would be, all of us, but we're in 3 different locations doing a radio show here this morning, like most other people. I think CP24, I think I saw some of the anchors. Aren't they in their homes or whatever?
Yeah, some of them are. The last time you and I actually saw each other in person, had a chance to hug because we hadn't seen each other for years. We were at a funeral.
Yeah.
That's that 2 years ago.
That's bad. That's brutal. I mean, that really is. Now, to even bring things down lower, like people are like, well, what are you doing now? Shouldn't you don't you end on a high note? No.
I know exactly what you're going to say. Go ahead, say it.
That's not what we're going to do here.
No, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins. So say it. Do you hope he gets COVID? Well, you know, he can because he's not vaccinated. It's probably true. Maybe he can. But
I think he and Aaron Rodgers should go on like a boat cruise together.
Yeah.
Look, if you want to bring up Kirk Cousins, I'm not a big fan. I've been cheering for the Vikings since 1985. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
There are a lot of things about him as a quarterback I don't really like. I love this team and I will lay down in front of a bus and you know, like all people who love their NFL team or CFL team even, you're going to be your armchair quarterback and start picking it apart because you know how that team works from top to bottom, right? No, you don't. None of us do. I don't know the internal rumblings of what goes on in Ziggy Wolf's world and the Minnesota Vikings. All I can do is try and come up with an assessment, what I see on the sidelines. I played football for many years of my life, so I've got a little bit inside. I went to junior Ticats camp. I would never professional, but in my mind, I guess I was. And I've got all the problem solved. Right?
And you played with guys who did play pro ball.
Yeah, Chris Gioskas was a long time talking to Coach Barker, and I'll always refer to Coach Barker as Coach Barker.
Yep.
You and I in Calgary during the time when I finally had a chance to meet him, and he was coaching the Stamps at the time, and I brought up Chris Gioskas' name, and he goes, "Gio, you played against Gio?" He went to Nelson High School in Burlington at the time. I played against guys like Lee Knight. Were guys, and so
stud Lee Knight. Lee Knight was a beast. Yeah.
But to watch the game, so I'll always have that passion for the game. I walk by a field and I'll see some kids playing football and I get all crazy inside. Like I think I can put on a helmet and get out there and play. I'm really happy to see the changes that the Vikings made with their front office, with getting rid of the coach and their general manager. There are so many vacancies out there for coaches, Mike. I got to be honest. So where I was going with this is, for as much of an expert, air quotes, I claim to be with the Vikings, I honestly can't put my finger on one head coach necessarily that would be a good fit. Kirk Cousins, is it time to get rid of him? He had a good year. You know, he didn't have a terrible year. There were a lot of games the Vikings lost by single scores, right? So
they were all tight games. They're all tight games, but a lot of them losses. That's the problem.
That's right. Now he threw again for over 4,000 yards this season. There are just things he does as a quarterback I don't really like. You know, when you're releasing that ball and he gives the ball a little slap before cocking it back and throwing it, that's just a little extra second that you're taking before you're releasing the ball. Regardless, your question was, do I hope he gets COVID? Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, we could look if that's upsetting for people. I could make it Ebola, rickets. Maybe.
How about a really itchy rash? I hope you get some kind of a rash that
gout is gout.
I have gout. It's a wonderful thing to have. But what a roller coaster ride for the Vikings. But man, what a table dressing for this coming weekend for football. I heard you were talking to some of the boys there.
Yeah, we were talking points with the fellas, and I said there's a couple of games that because of the Jekyll and Hyde nature of how they played, I include the Cardinals and the Rams in that one. But looking at the 49ers and the Cowboys, I think it's why you're going to find a lot of people taking the points. If you can get, for instance, in that Dallas game, if you want the 49ers, you're trying to get the hook, meaning that you want it to go plus 3.5. Like tomorrow, we'll talk to Phil Gray from Sports Interaction to see if does it get bet that way? Because I know the lines makers understand. Soon as that comes in at a 3.5, it moves it, right? So it becomes a liability. They have ways of balancing the book like that, but we'll talk to Phil Gray.
You talk about the Jekyll and Hyde aspect. Dallas Cowboys is your Jekyll and Hyde. That's a team for you, isn't it? And so are the Rams. Like,
yeah,
what team is going to show up? Arizona,
I don't know. I don't know. Which I think kind of Arizona does. I think that's why a lot of people will take those 4 points, and maybe some people think they might win that game, which is not going to be shocking. But
any dark horses for you, Mike? Like anybody looming out there right now? Like, first of all, look, you talk about Pittsburgh going the perfect formula to come together and make them even get into the playoffs. I mean, that was unbelievable to watch that whole thing unfold. However, any dark horses out there for you, Mike? Like a team that nobody's really talking about yet, they could just slide in there and away.
Put it this way, because I know we got to. I know we have to end here. But what I think is, if you play that game, so the any given Sunday kind of game, you could see a team in there that maybe you didn't think was going to be great. I don't know, the Bengals, if they play their best game, am I really shocked if the Bengals get through? The Bills have been terrible, but am I shocked if all of a sudden Josh Allen puts together 3 good games? You have teams like obviously Kansas City. Does Arizona, they started off 7-0. Did they go on a run? It will depend on the day, the weather, the circumstance, and who plays kind of consistent football, the execution of the game itself. You get one of those, it could be any. Look, it's not going to be Pittsburgh. It's not going to be Philadelphia. There's certain teams that just don't think it.
How about the Raiders?
The Raiders, I don't think get by Cincinnati, but they put up with some of the worst scenarios ever in football. Look, I know we got to run. We'll do this. Look, we're gonna visit again because I know we're gonna talk more before football, so we'll make sure we get on again.
Mike, thank you very much for having me on, man. We'll do it again.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again. That is my good friend Doug Kirkwood joined us here this morning.